Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy Newman. I serve as the Administrative and Citizen Science Coordinator for the Sitka Center for Art and Ecology, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to tonight's resident talk. Sitka is located at Cascade Head on the north central Oregon coast and resides on the unceded traditional lands of the Indigenous people now represented by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians. There is much to learn as just one step we can take, especially when we are planning a visit to Sitka or the coast. We encourage you to visit the Grand Ronde Chichalu Museum and Cultural Center. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the first of tonight's residents. They have been to Sitka before, and it is always a treat for our team to host residents more than one time over the course of their careers and see where their work has taken them. Ahimsa Timoteo Bodhran is a multimedia artist, activist, organizer, critic, and educator, a Tulsa Artist Fellow and National Endowment of the Arts Fellow. He is the author of poetry and photography collections, Archipelagos, Antes y Después del Bronx, Lenapehoking, and South Bronx Breathing Lessons. Bodhran is editor of the International Queer Indigenous issue of Yellow Medicine Review, a journal of Indigenous literature, art, and thought, and co-editor of the Native Dance Movement Performance issue of Movement Research Performance Journal. His visual art is exhibited in New York, Arkansas, Kansas, and Oklahoma. His videos have been shared in the US and Australia. He continually works with Indigenous, womanist, and queer trans communities of color to create compelling multimedia dance works. Bodhran has organized an international womanist, queer, trans, Indigenous roundtable dialogue on issues of water for Hawaii Review, co-founded the world's first transgender film festival, and the world's first transgender Arab roundtable dialogue for Sinister Wisdom, a multicultural lesbian literary and art journal. Ahimsa, we look forward to seeing you explore your next steps in multimedia and activism here in the forest. Welcome home.
Sego, it's good to be here in Siletz and Grand Ronde territory. May your sovereignty flourish. I'm going to be sharing a video that I completed a few years ago that was commissioned by Ginny Moganum, a queer Palestinian archivist, librarian, and writer in the Bay Area for a queer and trans Arab futures event, which incorporates unaltered nighttime photography and also digitally manipulated photography, as well as writing of mine.
Emissaries from the Arab world envision a queer trans Arab multiverse. 1. Continually folding, expanding, we tesseract, we multiply and permutate. There are floodings of fluids. The way gas expands, we ignite. We are plasma of blood pulsing and stars igniting themselves in night sky. Our darkness is infinite. We are matter and energy immeasurable by white standards. There are new observatories for us to see ourselves. We look backwards and forwards in space-time. We are new astronomers reshaping astrolabes to chart ancient seas. How deep our water is, salty, brackish, fresh, chlorine. We are all the elements on the chart tessellating, periods pulsing, becoming semicolons, slipping into commas, convulsing into ellipses. So many ovular orbits we synchronize. Our syntax shakes systems, supernovae. There are nuclear reactions, fission and fusion, stray electrons, neutrinos shooting through planets, across galaxies, gravitons. I am seeking you, soulmate, across echoes, black holes, ejecta. Perhaps in this galaxy or universe you are not, but you are traversing planes to reach me. I wait for you in the future and in the past. There is such a presence here. I feel you across nebulae, arteries red-shifting the blueprints of our alveoli, re-oxygenated galactic filaments, plural walls, souls supercluster around each other, beyond binary. We circle each other's paths. So many comets entering and leaving our systems, burning and icing cycles, venting and sealing intrastellar seed vaults. Some trace memory of what we were that we might become again. Such cosmic dust and ash, vestigial, swirling. 2. All these stars are ours, so named, as if we belong to them, familial, as if our destinies are already consecrated, constellated in the systems we visited before we came here, before we, many-vesseled, birthed from waters, primordial, pre- and post-human, these humidities, these wetnesses within and between our flesh, our desires ever darkening, illuminating infinite, our skins radiantly reflective of rainbows our irises can't register yet, so ultraviolet, infrared, heat and hearing, scored and searing, micro and radio waved, X and gamma rayed, our genders galloping, unbound, recombinant, glistening in our resurgent tetrachromacies. I want to feel you fully unbridled in all my matrilineal senses, the scent of you, your lightning lingering after storm, taste and touch thunderclap, my body recovering, hold me holding you upright, rebalance my proprioception, echolocate these emissions, nocturnal, the electricity between us lights up the dark, static, somatic, we see each other in glimpses, know each other through brief embraces, trace back in blood all that we were before. 3. Our peoples everywhere are Arabness in all peoples, our world a cosmos, most of us knowing our sacred geometries, how we tensile textured fit, tectonic tantalize, geodesic each sphere ensconced within another, our deep down cores pulsing, metallic, liquid, sublimating with callous satisfaction, such succulent subduction zones, mantles of muddled masculinity and femininity writhing, rolling over each other, proof all things melt in queer desire, that proximal magmatic, red-black, crisp crucibled, glowing, bioluminescent, our internal and external navigations, limitless, fractal, frenetic, deca-hectokilo, mega-giga-tera, peta exa zeta, yada, deci-centi-milli, micro-nano-pico, femto-atto-zepto, yocto, gracious grams of gratitude, luscious liters leaking, muscled meters massaged, sultry seconds sucked, radians of appreciative apertures agape, dilated degrees push past absolute zero towards absolute heat, jewels jangling in our celestial crowns. How immense, how infinitesimal. We exist within each other, engulf. We intersect at right angles, acutely flex, canine clench and feline stretch, scissor flakes of folded paper burnt to bone, snow misting into flame, hexagonal, octahedral, our inner chambers and outdoor cathedrals, interfaith congregant full, walls of stone a-sweat, concentric and interlocking, grinding, re-rendered tumblers smooth, slurried, rippling, voraciously veined, arboreal arabesque, vines of verdant vestiture and lace, hollowed hearth, breath upon breath between species, conversant in cubics we grid, four-dimensional, form heavenly configurations, murmurations of symbiosis, each swirl and dot, wave and particle, quantum these calligraphied skins shed and rebed, bred, quills quivering re-inked, re-weld, rethinked, cartographies of cursives relinked, elementary these educations, ancient untaught discursives, now subversive, rescript, every ursine sleeper cell awoken, each exonymed expletive re and declaimed, reenacted, counteracted, teleplayed in radio waves, only now reaching us. Every system pre and post this one of writing, speaking, glyphs that glottal, trilled tongues, never stop, hieroglyph and cuneiform, alphabet and abugida, abjad and syllabary, logographies, multilabial, this tongue lapping, committing cellular to memory, mitochondrial, miraculously multiple, a mutant, pendulous sways, forests of cherry stems, multi-generational, migratory, our ululation, uvula in perpetual motion, our fingers a blur of hummingbird wings, whipping a whistle register. 4. Centuries from now, millennia, indigo and golden houred, meteor showered, we will be gathering cedar, beating shells, plaiting sweetgrass, tying tobacco, chipping obsidian, smithing silver. None of this is new, us being on each other's shores, beneath dual moons, in each other's bloodlines, our tongues twinned in each other's mouths, fingers 6 or more, and laced. Across many terrains we will carry this message. We have always been travelers. We have always left sand in each other's jeans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ahimsa, for sharing with us tonight. Our second presenter is Mengjie. Mo was born and grew up in Yunnan, Kunming, where ethnic minorities and indigenous cultures have influenced her engagement with modern culture. Her background is in jewelry and industrial design, and she attended Cranbrook Academy of Art. Topics in her work focus on women's dilemmas. Using the tension of beads and thread, she calls back to the memory of typical historical women's labor and how now women's traditional skills are the new weapons to fight against patriarchy. Mo usually resides in Savannah, Georgia, but tonight she is with us at the Sitka Center. Welcome, Mo.
Hi, everybody. This is Mo, and this is what I want to show today. So I come from Yunnan, China, and my Chinese name is Mengjie. And here I spent 7 years at the United States, and that here everybody call me Mo. So feel free to call me Mo. First, I want to show something about my hometown because that is a really large part of where I'm from. And okay, so if you don't know where's Yunnan, here is in the very close to Thailand. It's between like China, this part. I don't know if that can help you to see it better because it's not a big city. I'm not from like the city like Beijing, Shanghai. There is at least 23 minorities live in my hometowns, and we grew up together. And actually my mother's side is also one of them, called Yi. And to grow up with different culture, different religion, different people, you see people like tattoo in the face, and you see people wear different clothes, they believe in like different gods. That was a fantastic experience for me. That experience teach me how to respect each other and how to love your culture and how to love each other's culture more. And the one thing very special about those minorities is some of them still keep the tradition of matrilineal. So some of them's mother is still in charge. Here is my beading piece. I see myself as a beading artist and also a jeweler, sculpture, like people doing sculpture. The reason I made this piece is because at that time, Supreme Court overturned the Roe v. Wade. I joined the protest. And after that, I don't think it's enough. So I made this piece to show my statement. I still cannot believe there's people trying to control my body, trying to control our body, trying to control me, to tell me what's need to do, what's not need to do. And that for me is not acceptable, and don't think anybody should accept things like that. So here's a piece. In this piece, I'm kind of make a statement like no control, and like nobody should control and our body, and we are together, and we are each other. Because I really into the idea of we are each other. I believe no matter another girls, like where are they from and where are they right now, still we can feel each other and we're together. The next piece is kind of like my inspiration piece, and is also the mother piece of all of my piece. Every time I have like no idea what should I do next, I go back to this piece and keep adding beats on. It's always like surprise me. It's always inspires me. Like I can always zoom in one part of this piece and make it a new piece. And move to the October one. For sometimes I see my work as a way to write my journal. Like what really happens doesn't that matter, isn't matter, but the feeling is really matter to me. I don't want to forget about the feeling. So I have to do something to let me remember, or to let people can relate to my feeling. But I'm really bad language user. So I choose beats, I choose art, I choose my sculpture to show it, to like keep it as my secret. I want to share my secret feeling with like everybody. For this piece, it looks like a balloon. This actually looks like this. And the Japanese fish print inspires me. I try to see it as a stamp and do some like trying to make the three-dimensional work be more flat, to do some like printing work like this, and I'm really happy with the result. And after that, I add a silver chain to control it. Like the idea of one material naturally control another material. I always see that as a metaphor. I really enjoy how it shows me in the end. Now, let's move on to my nipple collection. For some reason, I'm really like obsessed with the idea of nipple. It's a food for the baby, and also is a sex organ for like at the same time. It is the things like people receive but never be happy about it. I see it as a metaphor of women and society. You can see it in my work. The nipple is always so tired, but based on its beating work, so you can still find the prettiness in the ugliness. And the ugliness, you can see the ugliness is trying so hard to like wash the prettiness down, but it can be. It's always a fight between like ugly and the pretty, and I like the weird things like that. I like to make weirdo stuff. Legs. This was from the pillow piece of mine. It was a chair actually. Like if you forgot, here is pillow. Was the one piece, but after stay next to me 3 months, I feel like there's something wrong. I should take it off. I want to sit hold each other. I think that is right for me. That's the things I always say. No work, there's none of them is finished. All of them can be rebuilt. And as long as it with me, I'm always trying to find a new way to show it, to represent it. I see it as a performance piece. I see it as a jewelry piece. I see it as sculpture. Like it can be anything. Okay, so for this piece, I named it Blue. It was the piece trying to represent how I feel when I have my menstruation. So it can be a belt. The same thing happened. Like once it's a belt, then I also got a neck. So if it can be a belt, it can be a necklace, and try different way to represent it. This piece is I think is in Santa Fe right now. I'm selling this piece, and I want my audience to be free to use it, to see it in different ways. I don't want to limit it. I think after 1 or 2 years, I'm very obsessed with the color, mad red. I slowly move myself to this kind of like transparent color. I want to let the red thread to control the piece, and also to control me. Because something about the red thread is just It's just me. It's just like how I feel about this word. Like a lot of things are very microaggressive, and I don't know how to handle it. So the red thread like slowly grew up from my body, and here's the result. The same. And for this piece, the Lego inspires me. I want to use like the same element to build the stuff, and I want to keep add it on, and to try to see what's gonna happen. My favorite baby is this hand. Here are the things. I don't like to touch people, but every time my hand getting close to somebody, I know I don't need to touch, and I'm ready touching it. I think this sentence represents what I'm doing, and my work is I'm trying to use the bees to represent who I am, and it's kind of me inside out. I am a really bad language user. I'm bad in Chinese, English, or anything else, but the bees is my language. I use to speak, and I use it to speak loud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo, for sharing your work with us. Our next presenter this evening is Jamal Ademola. Jamal is a daring, inventive, multi-talented, award-winning Nigerian-American artist and film director whose oeuvre traverses a kaleidoscope of disciplines. He works across film, video, animation, painting, installation, acting, and performance. Through this comprehensive repertoire, Ademola embarks on a captivating exploration of Blackness that resonates deeply with the human experience by investigating identity, memory, language, dreams, ritual, love, and myth. Jamal, we are looking forward to thinking on the human experience with you tonight. Welcome.
Thanks so much for that lovely introduction. Just want to start off by saying very honored to be here with such talented, amazing artists. Some of you have not had the opportunity to meet in person yet. Just want to say thanks for being here and sharing your work with us. I want to say a few words. We only have 10 minutes, so there's two pieces of work I want to show. There's one short film that's 7 minutes, and another short that's about 1 minute long. In my work, I'm really interested in exploring heritage, which is unrepresented in the Western world. My dad is Nigerian and my mother's Black American, and so I live in the intersection of two different disparate cultures, and I find that these cultures often are seen as the same because they're perceived as Black, but they're quite different. So in this body of work, I'm constantly negotiating like intercultural expressions of Blackness, what it means to be perceived in a certain way. And I will start with the first film, which is called I Dreamed of Seeing Myself.
My thing, what I hope to do all the time, is to be so completely myself, which that's what I hope I am. To be so much myself that my audiences and even people who meet me are confronted. They're confronted with what I am, inside and out, as honest as I can be. In this way, they have to see things about themselves immediately.
I am the nights during full eclipse. I am the deepest indigo sky. I am the void, the unknown, the space in between. I am the fear that remains forever unseen.
I am the beautiful soil that wishes undetermined. I am the darkness from which all babies are born.
I am the words on the page. I have no beginning. I have no end. I am the first and the last, the incomprehensible.
I am the spark of consciousness. I am the keeper of the flame. I am the fire that burns until nothing remains.
I carry the cosmos, I host the sun and stars, I transplant the heavens, I shine from far.
I make mystery. I make intrigue quiver in awe. I am a rose that grows from concrete. I am a thing you try to mark.
I am
Vast
tapestry.
Love dreams because dreams represent your own personal world. They are your own window into all the cosmic possibilities. You know, time and space are totally erased in the dream.
I am the night I am the deepest indigo sky. I am the void, the unknowable, the space in between. I am the fear that remains forever unseen. I am the beautiful soil that pushes up the dirt. I am the darkness from which all babies are birth. I am the words on the page. I have no beginning. I have no end. I am the first and the last, the incomprehensible thing. I am the spark of consciousness. I am the fire of the flame. I am the fire that burns. I carry the cosmos. I point the sun, moons, and stars. I translate the heavens. I shine from afar. I make mystery and truth. I make mystery with all. I am rose that grew from concrete. I am the thing you try to mark. I am the beautiful boogeyman. I am the storm and I'm the thing you can't understand. I resist, I persist, my blood spirals through the land, through the tapestry, space and time. I exist, I forever and I forever and.
Okay, so that was I Dreamed of Seeing Myself, made in 2021. The film mixes archival footage, animation, and live action footage. And I would like to show, if there's time, one other short piece. Okay, so this piece is very short. It's called Place for You and I. Right, and that's all I would like to show today. Thank you so much for viewing.
Jamal, thank you for taking us inside your practice. Presenting next is Evan Silver, aka Tiresias. They are a hybrid writer, director, composer, performer, myth maker, and ritualist. divining new ecologies and mythologies for more habitable futures on planet Earth. Hailed as a rara avis of experimental theater by The New Yorker, they have written and directed 15 original theater productions on 3 continents and received Luce, Fulbright, Marshall, and McDowell fellowships. We're so glad you're here with us in this hybrid ecosystem, Evan, of forest meets meadow meets ocean.
So I'm just going to show a few images of my work so you can get a sense of what I've been doing for the past few years. And then I'm going to show an excerpt of my most recent solo performance project. So I've been performing as Tiresias, which is a name I've taken from Greek mythology, from the blind prophet. I decided to do that once I found out I was losing my sight a few years ago. And so the goal with this series of projects has kind of been to find some kind of generative, creative potential in the face of something that has otherwise felt like a limitation. So this is from the first project I developed as Tiresias in 2021. This is called Hyperphantasia. It's a sci-fi fantasy cabaret about the proliferation of matter in the universe and life on planet Earth. It's partly attempting to kind of deconstruct the survival of the fittest paradigm toward a different narrative of evolution that embraces beauty and extravagance. This is from my second project as Tiresias, which has actually transformed into this ongoing series that I'm still working on called Underworld. It's a project designed for queer nightclubs, and I think of it as a ritual celebration of the weird and the wild to sort of embrace through some kind of ritual practice the parts of our queer communities, cultures, and identities that are often seen as weird, monstrous, grotesque, unwelcome. Puppetry is a pretty central part of that project. This is an example of this character, Hades, who appears in some kind of different puppet form in every different iteration of Underworld. This is from a different Underworld, as is this. You see Hades again. This is yet another Underworld. This one is Underworld Mycelium, which took place in Berlin last August. This is a project that had just happened last month called Bacchanal, a festival of wild things, which was really meant to be a bacchanal. So it was kind of part immersive art happening, party, dance experience, lots of performances, ambient puppetry, a taxidermy installation, a lot of different things. But the idea was to be creating a space in which to celebrate wildness. The work I'm about to show you is a much more subdued work, partly because it's designed primarily to be a sonic experience. I'm attempting to draw attention away from the visual here. So yeah, this is called Cryptochrome. It's a sonic odyssey across the animal kingdom that invites audiences to imagine themselves in the sensory and perceptual worlds of other living things. It's partly inspired by a famous question in philosophy brought up by Thomas Nagel, which is, what is it like to be a bat? Which really raises the question of subjective experience in the more than human world. So I'm just going to play a part of it that I feel both captures the part of my work that's very concerned with ecological themes, which is the whole show, but also there's this sort of ongoing investment in mythology and the formation of mythologies, both drawing on ancient sources and contemporary sources towards something maybe future oriented.
But how did we get here? How to begin? You are aware. Your song can travel 10,000 miles. The seed conducts it like an orchestra. You make map-like models in your mind, tracing topographies of sediment and crust in the sound. You are the oldest living oceanic cartographer. You travel in the longest known animal migration, 10,000 miles round trip. journeys only your songs have traveled before you. Your song is a homecoming. It spreads across the ocean like an electric current, humming the great blue unknown, whispering caverns and valleys, horizon and home. It is an echo of what it once was when it cooled inside your mouth and throat. But it is still your song. Like all good stories, it begins with an nymph. There goes a nymph who flits and wild, tweet, tweet, how sweet. Lovebirds and lovebirds echo. The clouds fell out. See, the eagle was her husband, taking other lover. Hero's queen lived up in the clouds. She cursed the nymph so no words could come out, except the very last words spoken to her mouth. No one could understand how Echo had lost all command of the world, which used to fly like birds. There was a lady lived in the mountains. She watched the birds sick and gay and doubt. The rain forgot her, the rooster crowed, the river had not sown. And then one day, fell out of the sky, shimmered in his eyes, so she cried. She fell in love, and sorrow fell away.
Okay, I think that is my 10 minutes. The giveaway is she falls in love with Narcissus and turns into dust and then travels into the ocean and helps the whales echolocate.
Evan, thank you for taking us all the way to the whales. That was wonderful. Up next is 2024 Blue Sky Photography Sitka Center resident, Chris Lael Larson. Chris is a Portland-based artist working in the overlap of photography, painting, and assemblage to create new perceptual experiences. Larson constructs temporary altar-like assemblages for the camera utilizing found objects, reclaimed materials, natural elements, photographs, and paint to accentuate their latent qualities and reframe their meaning. He contrasts low-value materials and gestural mark making with hyper-real lighting to create a final image that confounds expectations. Chris has shown work in over 30 cities across the US, with notable exhibitions at the Berkeley Museum of Art, Portland Institute of Contemporary Art, and the Portland Art Museum Northwest Film Center. Please join me in welcoming Chris to the Sitka Center.
Thank you so much. It is really a thrill to be here. I want to thank Sitka and everyone who's made this experience so wonderful, as well as the rest of the cohort. I'm thrilled to be here amongst you all. What I was going to do today is show you some current work and then show you what I've been working on at Sitka. So the first project I would love to look at is called Still Life with Discarded Paintings. And it's exactly what it sounds like. For this project, what I did was I collected discarded paintings. So oftentimes paintings that were discarded by students, usually from introductory to painting classes. So people who are just learning how to paint. And they've taken these paintings, they've created them, and then they decided that they didn't like them, that they wanted to throw them away. So I reclaimed them from the trash. So there's something that I really loved about them, both their inherent qualities, but also the innocence that they contained, the unrestrained mark making. And it brought me back to that earlier sense of what it's like to make artwork. So this is a little bit what my process looks like. So on the left-hand side, you see this painting that I reclaimed from the trash. And then essentially what I do is I build it into a temporary kind of human-sized installation, which I then photograph to create the final image you see here on the right. And what I really love about this project is it's taking things that were throwaway, finding the redeeming qualities of them, and then rebuilding them and continuing them, turning into something new. I think within the lineage of art, it's so oftentimes the case that we're building from the past masters, so to speak, the canon, but I think inspiration can come from anywhere. I think anything can be a seed for new ideas. I think anything can kind of grow. And I love the idea too that there is no waste, that you can take anything and convert it into something, finding a spark or what it sparks in you. Here's another example. You can see the source painting on the left, and then what I do on the right to expand it, take it, recreate it, extend it, take that original idea, build it out into 3 dimensions and create a new image. And then I take that painting and I return it to a creative reuse center. So someone else threw it away. I took it, I created something out of it, then I pass it on for it to get made again. So here's another example. So you can see here, taking a painting, converting it into this installation that is then photographed. What I also love here is that it's like blurring the lines between what is a photograph and what is a painting, what is a sculpture, what is a temporary sculpture. I love the fact that there isn't really a clear answer, that oftentimes people encounter these. There's a lot of moments where it's like it could be any of those things. And I really love that tension of playing with the boundaries between those mediums. So here's some other examples. They get more and more abstract, taking things that are non-representational, but building off the ideas, the palette, the things at play. And then they slowly, after a while, started getting bigger, integrating more and more elements. It became much more immersive, life-size. These are all about 6 by 8 within the studio, and then get photographed to create these compositions. The thing I also really love about it is it's taking advantage of what I love about painting and what I love about photography. Obviously, photography has a very specific look, the way things look through a lens, the way things look when they're lit in a certain way, either naturally or through the studio, your depth of field. But also there's an expressive mark making that you can only get through painting as the medium that is such a unique part of what makes a painting a painting. So there's part of me, the formalist, who just like loves the way that it's blurring, it's taking the best of both worlds. Here's some more examples. The other thing that I love about this process too is it kind of like shows itself. It's not trying to trick you. It shows exactly what it's doing. You can see the edges of things that are kind of pasted together, elements that are pulled in. Even here, I've included my palette, which is like how I was sampling the paints to get the colors correct. That led into my next series, which is called Beginner Nudes, which is very, very similar. So I reclaimed a bunch of old discarded student nude paintings. So if you're in a figure painting class, if you're a freshman painter, you'll paint figures. And so I collected about 20 or 30 of these. And for a while, I just like loved them just because they're so awkward. The proportions are weird. The skin tones are all off. The sense of perspective is really skewed, but I felt like there was something that was just so endearing. There's like a deep innocence about them. And of course, there's this like other layer because they're nudes. So what I did is I created a project very, very similar, except I was building up the scale where I took these paintings and built around them. In this case, adding in branches, additional photographs, paint, clothing, pieces that really, really continue the narrative. And in this case, them being nudes, I really leaned into this like theme around Eden and original sin and what it means to have a naked body and to clothe that body. You also see branches in here that have themselves been denuded. This is a little like cheat sheet. So I'll build these temporary installations in my studio, built from the paintings and all these elements, and then I'll end up photographing this to create the final image. So you can see me for scale there on the left-hand side, and then the final image here on the right-hand side. Another example here, again, same sort of thing, taking these paintings, building these massive temporary landscapes in the studio to create these final images. Again, here, these kind of continue with that play of blurring the boundaries between, is it a photograph? Is it a painting? Is it an assemblage? Is it all three? Is it an object? I really, really love that tension and the blurring of the boundaries there. Some other examples from this same series. What I also love about these is photography, of course, with the way it casts shadows, creates a very, very unique sense of depth, which kind of like tricks the eye a little bit when you're looking at these because they are two-dimensional, but of course they've captured the three-dimension and flattened it down. And this last project is actually something that I've started here at Sitka and been working on for the last couple of weeks here. And I'm calling them cascades currently. I'm not sure, the name may change, but of course we're on Cascade Head, which is what it's currently called. These are all about just the overflow of imagery, details, and information. What I did was I started my couple of weeks here just photographing tons and tons of the landscape, several hundred photographs. I would take an area that interested me and just really, really cover it from every angle. High, low, close, far, wide, narrow. And then what I did is I take these photographs and I print them out very large. I do these color treatments to help solarize them, to really push them into this more abstracted space. And then I slowly but surely add layers of paint to build out the compositions, to kind of build them into a singular composition, slowly adding more and more layers. And then ultimately what I'll do is I'll start adding natural elements. So I'll actually take the elements that were photographed, bring them back into the studio, integrate them into the image, and then this creates the final image here. And what I've also loved doing in this case too is I leave this very top edge of the canvas visible in the background. This is the little clue, the little hint that this is a painting. It's on the canvas, but it's also a photograph, but it's also natural elements. So again, here, playing with that, blurring with the lines between the mediums. I love that this kind of incorporates both the micro and the macro, the paint of the photo, the fine details, the huge landscapes. It's also capturing more than one moment in time too, because I'm bringing photographs together that were shot over a duration. So this is for scale, how it looks in the studio. This is here at Sitka. This is actually the room I'm in. So we're kind of at the meta moment here. So I build these temporary installations and then I photograph to create that final image there on the right. You can see they're lit in a way that it casts these shadows to create this depth here. Here's some close-up details from one of these, giving a sense of how I'm integrating different natural elements. Sometimes I'm integrating the elements, sometimes I'm taking photographs and then printing them out and crumpling them up and then integrating them. Again, creating that kind of really dreamlike sort of disorientation. Here's another one, again, me for scale. I just happen to be wearing a shirt that matches this one. So again, the process on the left-hand side and then me on the right. Some details here as well. These are some additional ones. So kind of each one is taking another group of photos, but by the time I actually create the finished piece, oftentimes the photos are so obscured and so hidden that again, it really is blending the line there. So oftentimes like this case, there's a lot of leaves and branches pulled in here. Oftentimes I'm taking those branches, bringing them into the studio, painting them into the actual painting, and then reusing them that way. Some more detailed photographs here. And then what I also started doing too, I really love this idea that that you can make art out of your own art. So after I would shoot these larger compositions, I would take small pieces and create micro compositions. Sometimes I would take other edges, cut them out, reshape them, turn them into new objects. And I love this idea that as in nature with art, there can be no waste. Like as a tree falls down, new organisms grow out of it. As I make a piece, I can take old pieces of that piece, make new things out of it, recycle my own materials. Some more detail shots. Another one, large scale here. This one's focusing on these ferns and then bringing in actual ferns and rephotographing them and bring them back into the compositions. This is I think the last one maybe I made a couple of days ago. This taking part of Cascade Head here is this kind of like the image and kind of a Fauvist color scheme as well, looking at some details. But then also as playing with scale, are there times where I could actually just make smaller details? So not just showing these like macro, super dense compositions, but times where we can zoom in and actually immerse in small things. And I think, again, with these small ones too, just love that there's this interplay between what's painted, what's real, what's printed, what's actual, and that sense of illusion. So I'll be showing this work at Blue Sky Gallery in the fall, up in Seattle in June, and at the Sitka Art Invitational. Thanks so much. I think that's my time. Reach out and say hi.
Chris, thank you. I think me for scale is my new favorite ruler. Our last presenter of the evening just recently finished their Sitka residency and is tuning in tonight from Washington. Acuff's practice ranges from object making to installation to video and performance, and makes legible the specific agents that have made, erased, and perpetuated specific kinds of knowledge, structure, and perception over other possible formations. Acuff's work refashions dominant ideas about nature, gender, race, and class that organize and enact omnicidal world-ending violence, venturing instead to seed alternative biophilic imagination and radicality. Acuff is a professor of art at Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington. We are broadcasting tonight using technology, but join with me in the power of magical thinking to imagine M and the Sitka spruce trees of Washington are playing the longest game of telephone there has ever been with us here among the Sitka spruces at our campus. Welcome, M.
Thank you, Nancy. And thanks to everyone there. Firstly, wanting to mention how much gratitude I had in the time that I spent there. Only 2 weeks, but it was so nourishing. Really felt at home up there on that grassy mountain. So my time at Sitka was spent working on a lecture / performance that I will give in, I guess, less than a week now. And this is sort of the poster for the work that you see here, synthesizes other work in a similar vein to Chris, like kind of recycling a bunch of older works that I've made over the last few years, but also includes sculptural objects that I've been in conversation with for over 17 years. So this work builds on some small digital gestures that I started making during the pandemic called micro lectures. And I'll start by quickly showing you one of these here. It's just like, it's literally like a 1.5 minutes long. There we go. I mean, they're just these silly little gestures that I was making at home during the pandemic, kind of purposely making use of all the kind of most basic features of iMovie, not like glorifying it any more than that, and just sort of throwing out little ideas. And it had to do with having to teach online. and communicate online and not being able to exhibit. So, but I still find this kind of a little bit exciting way to put my body in relationship to some of these ideas and actual objects. So what you're seeing here is a piece called Juxtapose, and it's on the outside of the art building, or it was on the outside of the art building where I teach here in Walla Walla. And it's just a resin statue of Michelangelo's David paired with this orange welded structure meant to comment on the relationship between architecture and sculpture that is many centuries long, and on the commodification of these objects and how that changes their meaning, and the questions of authorship that are also put in play by purchasing something like this, right? Not made by me, but put into this new relationship. There's a little close-up of it's kind of like a necklace for the building. I also have been working with this lawn ornament deer for many years. And at one point I was doing this project where I would strap it to my back and carry it throughout the landscape. So this was a piece called Homing, the inherent ability of an animal to navigate towards an original location through unfamiliar areas. That is the definition of homing. Biologically, that's this instinct that we have. I was sort of postulating that, you know, this animal was a little actually homeless, not able to orient. And so I took it on a journey in which I drove from Washington State to my home, my original home outside Chicago, and I walked through every landscape that I could. So I'm in Yellowstone here, I'm in the Badlands, I'm actually walking out on Robert Smithson's Spiral Jetty. And then the next work that I'm going to show you is a work made with this same lawn ornament, but now it gets painted and it has a companion, and it has all these other elaborately manufactured objects, steel, wood, porcelain. There's some neon in this installation and other found objects. This was a piece called The Immiscible Edges that was actually in White Box in Portland. And then this final piece, again, many pieces have been made, but these are the ones, many pieces have been made using these objects, but here they are kind of showing up again in more recent work. So this was a piece at Carnation Contemporary, which is a gallery in Portland, from an installation called Torso. And it centers the David there. He's now painted all silver. On top of him is a thinker, Rodin's thinker, and then on top of him is a TV with an image of the Belvedere's torso, which I'll get to in the end. But all of this is sort of like this sort of unstable monument that's established on the top of one of the deer, again, kind of laying down. And then all these other sort of elements that I fabricate. Here's the Belvedere torso. I kind of want to just draw a few connections here. I mean, I'm obviously working out of this like very old, now 100-year-old tradition of the ready-made in some ways, although it's, you know, embellished with other highly wrought kind of fabricated things. But Marcel Duchamp's kind of controversial insertion of mass manufactured objects into the rarefied airs of the New York art world. So I'm working out of that tradition, right, which comes out of Dadaism and the horrors of the First and Second World Wars, surrealism, psychoanalysis, Marxism, right? And then get further taken apart in the 60s and 70s with performance body art, conceptualism. But here I started to see further connections. This is an image from Instagram of a person who's obviously trying to show that their physique is matching or almost as good as one of these sort of Greek statues, where we think of from Western civilization, ancient Greece and Rome, sort of heroic ideal. This person who's doing that is actually a trans person. So you don't really see much of the scars, but you see the elaborate kind of bodybuilding regime that's been taken on to approximate that. And so I'm really interested in that. And so I'm kind of taking up these sort of questions around queer representation, how that relates to climate change, ecocide, and a posture of sort of what Nicole Seymour, an art historian, calls bad environmentalism. So it's really about celebrating this sort of irreverence or indecorum or playfulness that kind of pushes back against a very heteronormative or sentimental way of thinking about the environment. So it's sort of a queer environmental posture. And it's, again, kind of thinking about the objects themselves, these plastic or resin objects, as being indicators of a certain economics, but also sort of fantasies about the natural world and what it can be made of. And so this last image is me and this deer again, or at least a part of this deer, and it's happening at Sitka out in the daffodil field outside the house. And so it's maybe a place that I'm going to continue to explore once I'm finished with the current work. So I know that was a little bit all over the place, blast from the past and sort of the up to the current, and a little bit of in between. But thank you, Sitka, for letting me put all these things together.
Thank you so much for taking us inside your practice tonight. Thank you, Ahimsa, Mo, Jamal, Evan, and Chris. Thank you, Sitka community, for tuning in with us tonight. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Good night, everyone.